In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new Rainbow Loom charm that is a pair of lips. I thought it would be a cute charm to make since it's getting near Valentine's Day. So what you will need is to choose your color. I've chosen red, and you will need 85 bands of that color. And then you want to have your loom set up in a rectangular shape so that all of the pins are in line with one another. And you want to have the arrows facing away from you. So we're going to be doing the bottom lip first. We have to do one lip at a time. So as I've said, we're going to start with the bottom lip, put that on, and then take it off, and then we'll do the top lip, and then we'll connect them before we take it off of the loom. So you're going to be starting on the left-hand side of your loom, and we're going to be starting with this top row of pins. You're going to be using 2 bands at a time, so you always want to have your bands doubled. And we're going to start here and just place those 2 bands over to the right. And now we're going to take 2 more bands, and this time we're going to come down and diagonally to the right. And then from here we're going to go over again to the right, just straight over. And then again we're going to be on this same pin, and we're going to go down and diagonally to the right again, always using 2 bands at once. And now we're going to just work our way across both of these rows. So I'll go to this center row and move it over to the right, and then I'll go to this bottom, and again just going to keep going over to the right. I'm going to go the length of 4 pins in both of these rows. So that's our second set of bands. And now again I'm going to continue to the right. And then finally I want to do one more set in both rows. And now from here I'm going to work my way back up diagonally to form the other side of the lip. So I'm going to go in the center row. I'm going straight over to the right, but from the bottom row I'm going to go up and diagonally to the right. And then once again from there I'm going up and diagonally to the right. And then finally in that top row I'm going to go straight over to the right. And so that is my bottom lip, and now I have to put the cap bands on. So again, starting with this pin that we just ended on, I want to put 1 band on this end pin, but I want it to be tripled, so I'm going to place the band on my hook, and then I'm going to wrap it around so that it's doubled, and then wrap it around one more time so that it's tripled, and then I'm going to just place this on the top of this pin. So I'm just going to carefully get it on. And then I also want to put some cap bands on these pins here where it's nothing in the center. So I'm going to start on this row right here. So if you look at where this V shape is, it's going to be the next pin over towards the left. And I'm going to put my band on my hook, and I want to double it. So I'm going to wrap it around a second time, and I'm going to just place it on this center pin and pull it down to the row below. And then I'm going to do that a second time. I'm going to just move over towards the left hand side. Again, I'm going to double the band, and then I'm going to place it on this top row and move it down to the row below. And then finally I'm going to do the same thing on this row right here. I'm going to double the band and then place it on this center pin and pull it straight down. And so now I want to start to take this bottom lip off of the loom. So I'm going to turn the loom around so that the arrows are now facing towards me. And I had used my plastic Rainbow Loom hook to place the bands on the loom, but I'm going to switch to my metal hook to take the bands off of the loom because sometimes there's a lot of tension put on the hook and I don't want it to snap. So I'm going to be starting on this pin that's the closest towards you, and if you recall, we put a tripled cap band on there. So I want to reach my hook down through the center and push back on those 3 bands at the top, and I want to grab the 2 bands underneath. I'm going to use my finger to hold this cap band in place, and I'm just going to move it to the pin above to the right. And now once again I'm going to just reach down through the center. I should have 2 bands below. Going to get them on my hook and move them diagonally up and to the right. And now on this next pin I have 2 sets of bands underneath. So what I want to do is reach my hook down through the center, and I'm going to grab the top 2 bands that are next on that pin. I'm going to take them off, and I'm moving them up and diagonally to the right, placing them on the top. And now I'm going to stay on this pin, and I have 2 more bands. I'm going to pull up through and move right up to the right hand side. And now I'm going to go on this pin. I should have 2 bands below. Grab both of those bands and pull them to the pin above. Just going to keep working my way up. Now on this pin that's on the top row, I'm going to grab the bottom 2 bands, get them on my hook, and move them to the pin to the right again. And then on that pin I'm going to reach down through the center. Now I have a cap band on here, so I want to make sure that I'm going inside of that cap band, pushing back on it, grabbing the 2 bottom bands and moving them up to the pin above. And now I'm going to go back to the center row. I'm going to do the same thing, go down through the center, pull back on the 2 cap bands, grab those bottom 2 bands and go to the pin up and to the right. And then from this pin I'm going to again pull back on that cap band, grab those bottom 2 bands and move them up to the right again. Now I'm going to go back to this top row, push back on the cap bands, grab those 2 bands and move them forward. And then from here again I'm going to go down through the center, push back on the top bands, grab those bottom 2 bands and pull them forward. And then back to this center row, push back on the cap bands, grab the bottom 2 and pull forward. And now from this pin again, grabbing those bottom 2 and pulling it to the right. Go back to this top row, grab the bottom 2 bands and move them down and diagonally to the right. And now I'm going to have to reach down through all of these bands, grab the bottom 2 once again, pull them down and diagonally to the right, and then finally I'm going to reach down through the center, grab those bottom 2 bands and move them to the right. So now all of this should be connected. The only loose end you have is just right here where we just finished. And so now what I'm going to do is put my hook down through, and I'm going to now take it off of the loom. So I want to just release it and make sure that you keep hold of it on your hook. And I'm just going to carefully take this off of the loom. It is tight to pull off. And then this is my bottom lip. And now what I want to do is I'm just going to take a pen and I'm going to put these bands on the pen just so they don't come apart. Just going to slide it through. And then I'm just going to put this to the side for now. And then once again, I'm going to work on the loom and do my upper lip. So I'm going to have the arrows facing away from me this time. So for our first band placement for the upper lip, we're going to be starting on the lower row of pins. You're again going to be using 2 bands at once, and we're going to go straight up and to the right. And then from here, we're going to go straight up and to the right again. And then we're going to be staying on this same pin, and we're going to go up and diagonally to the right. And then from here, we're again going up and diagonally to the right. And now on this same pin, we're going to be going straight to the right. And on this bottom row, we're going to be going straight over to the right. We're going to be making a shape that looks like a mountain or an A. So now I'm going to go back to this top row, and I'm going to come diagonally down and to the right. And now to the pin below, I'm going to go straight over to the right. And then to the pin below, again, I'm going straight over to the right. And then from the next pin, I'm going straight over to the right. And then to this pin above, I'm coming down and diagonally to the right. So that's our first mountain, or A. And now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to go up and down. So from here, I'm going to go straight over to the right. And then staying on that same pin, I'm going to go up and diagonally to the right. And then from here, again, I'm going up and diagonally to the right. And then staying on the same pin, I'm going straight over to the right. And then I'm going to the pin below, and again I'm going over to the right. And now I want to go back to this top row, and I'm going to come down and diagonally to the right. And then on this pin below, I'm coming straight over to the right. And then on the pin below that, I'm again going straight over. And then from here, I'm going straight over. And then from this pin, I'm going diagonally down and to the right. And then finally from this pin, I'm going straight over to the right. And then once again, I want to put my cap bands on. So I'm going to be starting on this same pin, And again, I want to triple this band, just like I did with the lower lip. So I'm going to place the band on my hook. I'm going to wrap it around a second time and then a third time. And I'm going to just place this on the top of this pin. And then I also want to put cap bands in the center of these mountains. So I'm going to double this band, put it on my hook, wrap it around a second time, and it's going to start at the peak here, and it's going to stretch all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. I'm going to double the band. I'm going to place it on this top row and then stretch it all the way down to the bottom. And now the next thing that I want to do before I start taking this upper lip off of the loom is I want to attach one side of the bottom lip. So here is my pen with my lip attached, and I'm going to attach the side that the pen is not in. So I'm going to be attaching the side that is closed. So we have a cap band on here. So I'm just going to take my hook and put it through these 3 bands, and I want to attach it right here. It's going to be the second pin over from the right side of your loom. So I'm just going to stretch this out and place this right on the top. I'm going to slide it down so that it's below here. And then I'm going to turn my loom around so that the arrows are once again facing towards me, and it's time to take this off of the loom. So I'm going to be starting on the pin that's closest to me here. I'm going to be reaching down inside, pushing back on this cap band that was tripled, so there's going to be 3 bands there. Grab these bottom 2 bands, pull them out and move them to the pin above to the right. And now this pin is going to be very full because it has all of the bands on plus this extra band from the lower lip. So what I'm going to be doing is reaching down inside, and I want to be grabbing the top 2 bands that are actually these bands here that are going up and diagonally to the right. They're the ones that should be on the top. So I'm going to reach down and I'm going to be grabbing these top 2 bands. It might be a little difficult to get them, and I'm just going to pull them up through, and it's going to be tight. Oh, that's right, I wanted to switch my hook and move that to the pin above. Let me just switch to my metal hook now. And now again, working with this pin, I'm going to reach back, and there should be only 2 bands at the bottom here. I'm going to pull them through and move them up and to the right. Now I'm working with Rainbow Loom rubber bands, and you can use any kind you want, but I would suggest that you have ones that are more slippery so that they slide easily against one another. Some of the brands are more rubbery and they don't go against each other well. They want to grip to each other, and it will make it much more difficult to do this. So from here again, I'm going to move to this center row, and again I have 2 sets of bands that are underneath. I have the one that's going straight and the one that's going diagonal. So the one that is going straight ahead is going to be on the top. So I'm going to just move these bands out of the way, push back, grab the top 2 bands, pull them out through the center and move them straight up to the right. And now I have the other 2 bands go down through the center and move them diagonally to the right. Now I'm going to go back down to this bottom row. I'm going to be grabbing these 2 bottom bands and moving it up and to the right. And then I'll stay on this pin, grab the bottom 2 bands, pull it up to the right. Now I'll move to this center row, and again this has a cap band on it, so you want to make sure you're going down through the center, pushing back on that cap band. Make sure that your hook is in the center of that. Grab these 2 bands and move it up to the right. And then at the top, again, I'm going to be going right down through the center, pushing back on all of the bands. There's a lot of bands on here. And just grab this bottom 2, pull them out through the center, and then move it diagonally to the right. And then from here, again, I'm going to reach down through the center, grab those bottom 2 and move them up and diagonally to the right. And now I'm going to go to this pin where we had left off. Grab the bottom 2 bands and move them to the right. And now again, this is going to be very full, and I have 2 sets of bands. I have one that's going down and diagonally to the right. That's going to be the one on the top. So I want to go down through the center, grab hold of these top 2 bands. It's not always so easy to do. You want to make sure you just have the top 2. And you want to pull them out through the center and move them down and diagonally to the right. And now on that same pin again, we're going to reach down through, grab the other 2 bands and move them straight to the right. These are a little tight to get out. And now from this pin, I'm going to be grabbing the bottom 2, again moving it up to the right. Go back to this center pin. Again, I have 2 sets of bands. The first set is going straight and the next one's going diagonal. So I'm going to reach down, grab just the top 2 bands and move that straight to the right. Grab the other 2 bands and move that down and diagonally to the right. And now I'll move to this pin in the lower row. I'm going to again be reaching down through. There's a lot of bands on here. I just want to grab these bottom 2 and pull it out and then up and diagonally to the right. I'm going to go back to this center pin, and again I have this cap band in the center, so I'm going to make sure that I'm going in the middle, pushing back on that cap band. Grab the bottom 2 bands, move it straight over to the right, and then on this top row I'm grabbing the bottom 2 bands, pulling it out and straight up to the right. And now at this point I want to attach the other side of my lower lip. I want it to be right here. It's going to be the second pin over from the right side of the loom. But what I have to do first is take some of this off because it would be a really long stretch to try and get this to connect. What I'm going to do at this point is to reach my hook down through the center, and I'm going to carefully take some of this off. You want to make sure that your pen still stays in that other side of the lip because that is the loose side. Just going to remove like half of the upper lip. And now what I can do is take these bands, and again I'm putting them on this second pin over from the right side of the loom. There should be 4 bands. I want to make sure that all of them get on the top of this pin. Just going to slide this off. And so now it's attached. Now I can take my hook out of here. And now I just want to complete the rest of this, finish looming. So from this pin on the top row where we left off, I'm just reaching down through the center, grab those bottom two bands and move them over to the right. And also now in the center row we have to do these two bands. Get them out and move them up and diagonally to the right. And then once again there's going to be a ton of bands on this pin. So you're going to have to reach down through all of these bands. You're only concerned with the bottom two. Put them on your hook and it's going to be tight. You're going to pull them up through and put them on the pin to the right. And so now what you want to do is take another band, a red band or whatever color you're working with, reach down through the center of this pin and grab this band and just pull it up through, and then put the other end back on, and then loop one end through the other and pull tightly. That's going to make a slip knot. And now you want to again put your hook through this, and we're just going to take the rest of this off of the loom. Again, that pin there is going to be very tough to get the bands off of because it has so many on. And then here are your lips. This is what they look like. And you can take your hook out now because we have tied off this loose end with a slip knot. And you can move the bands around a little bit to get them in a good position. And then what you want to do is you have this loose end and you don't want to leave this hanging out. So what you can do is go to the back side, take your hook and reach through some bands and grab this loop. You want to make sure again that you pulled this really, really tight so that it stays on. And then you're going to pull this loose end into the back. And what I would do also is take a hook, or you can take another band if you want, and secure this in place just to be certain that it doesn't work its way loose. So you can take this loop and put it through the hook, and then just take your hook and attach it to some other bands in the back here. Make sure it's in the middle so it's not going to be visible from the other side. And then here you have your lips, just in time for Valentine's Day. And here is another pair of lips that I made using pink bands. These bands were a different brand and they were not as easy to work with. You can see they seem to be thicker and they were much more difficult to work with. But I also added a little hang tag here, just making a slip knot so we could hang them if we wanted to. I'll also be making another video showing you how to make the lips using the different setup of the loom, using the staggered pattern, and that results in lips that are a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit more puckery. So hopefully you've enjoyed my video. You can feel free to leave me comments on YouTube or Facebook, or I'd love for you to send me pictures of your creations so I can share them on my page. Thanks!